there and welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Tracy Shilshi, and today we're shifting our focus to our other neighbor, Nepal, that's staring at yet another political crisis. Not surprising, the second, in fact, in 3 months. Top leaders of the Nepali Congress and CPN-Maoists, at least earlier today, in fact, decided not to withdraw the no-confidence motion against Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. However, they did also claim that they would not push for the no-confidence vote or ask for the Prime Minister's resignation, at least push for it, not push for it right now. This perhaps after the Prime Minister yesterday, on Thursday, in fact, hinted that he would resign if the House agrees to pass the pending finance bill. This, however, leaves the much debated controversy over whether he would stand by his word. Also, the election of Oli's possible successor, wide open, with constitutional experts remaining divided over it. And also we're going to be taking a look at how India is viewing those developments. To find out, we have in studio former Ambassador Suresh Goel with us. We also have Foreign Affairs expert Professor S.D. Muni and Sanjay Kapoor, who is the editor of Hardnews, with us in studio. We're hoping to get an editor as well as senior journalist from Kathmandu as well on the phone line, who will be joining us a little short while from now to give us a clearer picture of perhaps what went on this evening, at least there in Kathmandu. But for the moment, Professor, if I could come to you, and by the looks of it, it does seem like they are looking ahead to perhaps pass those bills and probably see if, KP Sharma Oli is going to stick to his word and resign.
Well, to the best of my understanding, this issue had to be taken up yesterday on 21st. And there was a meeting. In that meeting, the Prime Minister insisted that I will not resign and you have to take the finance bill first, because finance bill has otherwise been cleared in the Parliament in the sense of debate, discussions, whatever else it is. Therefore, now voting has to take place on this. And if you do that, then there was another formula saying that, okay, let Prime Minister resign. If he resigns, then we will take the no confidence motion back and then we will pass the finance bill. So there was a wriggle over this. And eventually, they all seem to have agreed to take the finance bill first for voting, not for passing, not necessarily for passing. For voting, and once that is sorted out, then they would take up the no confidence motion. And whatever the Nepal media is saying, that both Nepali Congress, the Madhesh parties and the Maoists have decided to vote out the finance bill, means defeat the finance bill, so that partially Prime Minister Oli's insistence is accepted that we have taken the finance bill. I personally was quite puzzled, because the best way in a democratic system to vote out a government is to vote out the finance bill. And that should have been done from the beginning. But anyway, what I think Mr. Oli wants to show, that the Maoists, though they approved the budget, they have voted against it. So he probably is preparing, the election agenda, or justification for what his insistence is that he would not resign.
And not surprising for Nepal, because they, even though they do have a democratically elected government, we have seen in past they don't really go step by step as one would expect,
Nepal
isn't it?
Is amazing in many ways, that suddenly you find that they have absolutely unresolvable conflict, and within minutes they will come to a certain consensus.
Absolutely. You thought that the Madhesi problem was so big, Oli wouldn't come to power, but eventually something worked out.
Or you thought you had a consensus, and in next 5 minutes they would have a serious problem.
That's right. And talking about Oli, Sanjay, he's of course, at least reports are saying he's going to try and hang on as long as possible. That is of course going to be his game plan. Does it seem to be working? Because there are reports suggesting that high-level Chinese delegates are in Kathmandu and they are trying to gather up support, for Oli. Do you see any truth in that?
I was in Kathmandu till Sunday last week. And the mood in Kathmandu was that, you can't really trust the Prime Minister, although the no confidence motion is being brought, expected to be on the 21st of July. It didn't really happen, got postponed. And all this entire wrangling is going on, what to bring in, the finance bill or whatever. But he's a person who's not going to give up easily. He's going to go there kicking and screaming, and that is how it seems. You saw exactly what happened in May. This is the first time, according to many people, Professor Muni would also bear testimony, Chinese have never really intervened so aggressively in Nepalese matters. I interacted with officials from our embassy also, and they thought that they were far more aggressive, talking support for him from Prachand, from others, and I mean, they're talking about the fact that, you know, you have a communist government, why bring down a communist government?
Yes.
And there is a lot of things that could be done together. So that kind of purpose that was at display, according to the information which is going around from the Chinese, had not been seen before. And that effort continues, that enterprise continues, despite the fact that the entire coalition that has been in power has actually come apart. The Madheshis are out, the Nepali Congress is withdrawn support,
Yes.
Mr. Prachanda has withdrawn support, and they don't seem to, don't give an impression of coming together. And it's a matter of time. But what Mr. Oli is also trying to do, there's no nothing in the constitution which talks about the new government coming in. I mean,
Yes.
they talk about the no confidence motion, but there is nothing. But I'm told there is a Niyamavali which talks about the process by which you form the new government.
Okay.
But there is jury still out how much you know, intervention can be brought in. There is even a talk about the matter going to the Supreme Court, the Prime Minister referring it to the Supreme Court to find out exactly how the new government will be formed if his government is brought down.
All right, all right. Mr. Goel, you know, the Chinese, like being pointed out by Sanjay, and we have been noticing it, the Chinese intrusion, in a sense, if you could call it intrusion, or its interests, in fact, in Nepal's politics, you know, the formation of government. Is that something India is going to be looking at closely? Is that a concern?
I do believe that it's a matter of great concern and sensitivity to us, because obviously if you look at our relationship, it's one country where the relationship has been practically one of, you know, the close, very close, almost like a bond between the two countries. And even till about before Mr. Oli became the president, there was Prime Minister,
yes.
there was never any question of China replacing India in terms of the relationship priorities, focus in Nepal. They had been trying, but it never happened. Now, if the Chinese come to the extent of being able to exercise an influence on persuading, influencing the process of no confidence, asking Prachanda, etc., to see how the situation could be salvaged, is a matter of concern to us. I don't know, however, whether they will succeed in this process or not, because from all indications, Prachanda and the NC, etc., and Madheshis are fairly clear that they will go up to the stage of no confidence motion, even if it happens after the finance bill. But so therefore, in a sense, this seems to be a time when one decision would be taken, whether Oli stays or not. As Professor Muni also pointed out, my only concern is really, I don't know what the Niyamavali says in Kathmandu, but my only one concern is whether Oli, when he is leaving, he has the wherewithal to call for the dissolution of the parliament or not, even if it is a vote of no confidence against him, whether he can or not, because that would mean another period of instability in Nepal. And that is, I think, something which will be a cause of even greater concern to all of us.
That is where I think perhaps a voice from Kathmandu would be interesting at this point of time.
He wants to be the caretaker.
Yes, he wants to be the caretaker.
Yes, caretaker, because you cannot dissolve the house till the time it completes its term.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And what kind of a role does Prachand play in all of this, Professor Muni? We have seen he is, of course, a big Maoist leader in the past as well, but especially in this particular scenario, what kind of a role will he play?
Well, he is intending to be the Prime Minister.
Yes.
He holds the, what you call the kingmaker's number with him. He is certainly not in absolute majority, and that's why you remember in May again, he had asked to get out of Oli's alliance and wanted to bring it down. He has his major concerns in terms of both party, whatever his personal ambitions are. And I think one or two issues are very, very important for him. One important issue is the question of, going back to the insurgency period and punishing those people for so-called human rights violations, because Maoists killed many people and Nepal army killed many people.
Yes.
And UML has a lot of affiliate NGOs who are working in the human rights field. And they had raised this issue that these guys must be punished for their human rights violations. And they have even moved to the court and named Prachanda personally, besides other Maoist leaders, Baburam and others, that they should all be punished. Now, Prachanda's contention is that this is not valid. It was a major transformation, and therefore revolutionary changes cannot be submitted or subjected to ordinary criminal law, which is being done. So he says this must be considered under what they call Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and this is what Mr. Oli had promised but was not moving forward to. So this is a major problem between the Maoists. Besides, there are other issues of compensation, the performance of the Oli government economically, administratively. There are a lot of problems about it.
A lot of problems, but a lot of it which he's blaming on India. You know, he's not.
Well, he blames everything on India because he thinks, again politically, that by raising up the nationalism issue, he can politically survive or politically strengthen himself. So there are issues involved in this whole game, and let us see how the new coalition would address some of the issues which Prachanda has raised. Incidentally, yesterday evening, Oli in one of these speeches said that Prachanda will have to repent whatever he is doing now within 6 months' time, because the Congress purpose is only to divide the communists, and then he will not get what he is getting. So he is also trying to, you know, constantly Mr. Oli is trying to see that this scheme does not
succeed. Combined does not work. And already, you know, the very fact that there is going to be a sharing of power, you know, Prachanda stays PM for a certain period, then Yubaraj steps in after a few months. There's already talks of that. There's already a pact.
No, it's already an agreement for 9 months for Prachanda.
Yes, 9 months.
And the rest of the 9 months for the Congress.
Yes. And that in itself is, you know, is a very unstable setting, you know, for a country that's reeling with so much problems. You're going to have a prime minister just for 9 months and then another one comes over. I mean, that in itself, the setting itself seems very unstable.
Nepal is used to it. We've had 23 governments in 26 years.
We have had such arrangements even in India.
Even in India, in UP.
2 years you become the prime minister.
Like in UP, you had it.
These are all political arrangements of a fluid situation.
So, but similarly, I think even in this arrangement which is going to be voted out or changed, Oli and Prachanda had a similar arrangement, but the Oli didn't really go through it. Because Oli has been very clever. He has taken advantage of whatever has happened in Nepal over the last 2 years, whether it was the earthquake, whether it was the Madhesh issue. He was able to unite the hill elite and create a kind of wave in his favor, which made it very difficult for others to actually even try to remove him. So he still feels that, you know, the wind is with him in comparison to Prachanda, who, as Professor Muni said, has been very ambivalent about how he should look at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. All his crimes have been put
That's right, the baggage of the human rights
so
violations.
He's not very sure how that... So he needs to intervene, get into the government to somehow ensure that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in a certain way performs those tasks which it has promised, because Oli has kept the matter very hanging. So you talk to people in Nepal and they say, you know, he could be hauled up for the crimes that he committed. He could be set aside, he could be put behind bars. So, you know, that sword is hanging on Prachand, and I think that has become a reason why he was able to even surmount, or you can look the Chinese pressure in the eye and say, look, no, that's not possible, because Oli will not deliver. Oli is made differently. He's an archetypal, manipulative politician, and he's probably shown his colors rather well. Look at the Indians. Indians don't even know how to deal with Oli. I mean, they're praying. They're praying that he goes away quietly and whatever has to happen. Because I found a certain amount of, you can say, helplessness. And in
I mean, just the very fact you call back the ambassador, you call the ambassador, you cancel President Bhandari's trip.
Exactly. And, you know, he said, you know, I'm sorry about it.
And that was quite,
very strange.
You know, embarrassing for the Prime Minister. He was hoping, you know, they would actually sit together at the Simhast Mela. You know, there were huge plans, and then suddenly the President's trip gets cancelled.
And when the matter was taken up with him, he turned around and said, you know, I was fed wrong input. Didn't mean to, you know, and by the time I realized, you know, that trip had been cancelled. So, you know, it's so with such ease, so much of lies are being peddled, there's so much of this wonderful game is being unpacked in Kathmandu. So, we're waiting for the next, you can say, episode to, begin there in Kathmandu. Let's see what really happens.
Yeah, so Mr. Goel, do you think India needs a new playbook? Do they really need to, I mean, Oli's future we don't know yet, but do you think it's time that perhaps there's a different kind of a strategy that needs to be adopted? Not just say that, we've had relations for so long and trade relations are great, economically we are very important for them. But clearly, by and large, the feeling towards India is definitely changing.
Well, you see, the thing is that I think the relationship is far too important for us to say that, all right, let it be, whichever way it is going, and we will...
Especially with China eyeing it so strongly,
we can't allow it to drift, if that is what you are trying to say.
Yes.
The relationship is important all by itself, really, because of the people who are involved. As you know, the Beti Aur Roti Ka Rishta and all those things. China is another factor. But I think at this stage, we have to see which way the process goes. I think my own sense is that if the Chinese are trying too hard to influence the process in Nepal, it is going to backfire. It is going to create that kind of resentment amongst the people that the Chinese are taking. Even India has not done it in the way the Chinese have begun to do it, really. It's actually too obtrusive. Okay. It's very, very obtrusive. So I don't know, hope perhaps that there would be a kind of a backlash against what the Chinese are doing. Whether it happens or not is a different thing. But I think eventually one can hope that the people who, I mean, if Oli goes, then the next Prime Minister who comes, Prachanda, and after him, when, sorry?
Duba, yes.
When Duba comes over, takes over, that hopefully by that time they will see the sense of maintaining that kind of focus on relationship with India. There are different processes, there are different ways that can be impressed or that can be done. But I think the first thing is that people within Nepal need to realize that the future lies with India. Even if China becomes a player, but they cannot simply say that India doesn't matter, which is what Oli has been trying to do. When you play India against China or China against India, you are trying to say that, look, we don't care what you're doing. But that is not the truth. And you have seen that in what happens with Madheshis. You have seen, in the sense, what happens with the NC.
Yes.
So that cannot carry on.
Where do the Madhesis stand at this point? Are they with Prachand? Are they with the Nepali Congress?
Is for changing the government.
Okay.
But if I get back to this question of India and China,
yes,
I am not a great admirer of the way India has dealt with Nepal, frankly speaking. We have committed a lot of slips here and there, maybe unwittingly, maybe unknowingly, maybe out of ignorance, maybe out of design. And as a result, whenever an alienation grows between India and Nepal, Nepal looks for other possibilities. And China is something which comes immediately to them. And China exploits it to the best of its capacity. At the moment, the Chinese have tremendously enhanced their stakes, not only in Nepal, but in whole of South Asia. Look at Pakistan, look at Sri Lanka, look at Maldives, look at Bangladesh, everywhere. And therefore, the Chinese have been cultivating politicians across the parties, not only amongst the communists, but almost in every party, Maoist, UML, Nepali Congress, Madheshis. They have been taking them to jaunts too. And therefore, your question is very valid. As to India has to sit down and do a serious homework as how you have to deal with the Chinese challenge in whole of the region, and Nepal is particularly sensitive for that matter.
Yes, that's right.
And one of the way to do that would really be to bridge the alienation, which is, and mind it, Indian policymakers must keep it in mind that the old methods and old diplomacies would not work. It's a new Nepal. It is a young Nepal.
Yes.
It is an aspiring Nepal. It is a Nepal which is not under monarchy or feudal rule.
Yes.
And people would come out on the streets and show their anger, which they did earlier. And therefore, we have to be very, very careful in assessing as to what our core interests are and how to pursue them.
Absolutely. And also the perception that, we try to interfere too much. We try to act like this big brother over Nepal. That is a sense that also has crept in ever since the earthquake time. We did see quite of a...
I think it's only a matter of perception, really.
Is it? Yes. And that doesn't matter on the ground, like being pointed out that the youth, the young...
I don't agree with that. I think the impression in Nepal for not just the last 2 years, been there for many years, that we talk down,
Yes.
And since the time, you had the Maoist revolution, as Professor Muni pointed out, people have taken to the streets. There is so much of assertion that you find, democratic assertion, that in a certain way has given Nepal its new identity. So they don't want to be pushed around.
Yes.
And that is where I think India is finding it difficult to handle the situation. Suddenly you have a more aggressive leadership. Oli may be manipulated, but he's also a fan, or as I said, the wind is coming from the people who want more assertion of national identity. So they want maybe a better deal coming from China, and China is taking advantage of many things. I mean, they also want to show India its place after the position they took in South China Sea, or what may So Nepal for them becomes an area where we can needle or finger us. So look at how they're doing it. I mean, they're investing so much in Lumbini, where Buddhist circuit used to be something that was ownership of India. They want to also challenge us there, and they are challenging us in every possible way.
Yes,
and it's become a very area of major contestation. And India made a good beginning when Prime Minister Narendra Modi had gone. His first speech was like he swept everybody off their feet. When the second trip that he made, a lot of things went wrong.
Okay.
And after there's been an unending slide. And I think our Foreign Office is seemingly at the moment clueless. They'll be happy if Oli goes and they can start rebuilding much of that they've lost.
And of course, Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, is of course slated to visit in October. And there is hope, at least Oli is perhaps hoping he lingers on till then, because there are going to be some important decisions they're going to be taking together if that eventually happens. That's something that we should watch out for, and is that China is hoping to do as well.
I think over the last 2 years, particularly after Xi Jinping has become the president in China, we do notice one factor, that China seems to be becoming more aggressive and more forward-looking in its relationship in the region, in the whole area of South Asia, and Nepal, our neighboring countries in particular, obviously. So Nepal is one example where China, unlike in the past, where they did recognize that India's relationship is very special, and they did try to maintain that kind of a nature of the relationship and didn't go beyond a point. Now I think they have begun to really break those boundaries, and they're coming much more forward than what were the boundaries before. So obviously, I think they will come. They will do that. I think there is a distinction between what the leadership like Oli and Prachanda are saying and what the people on the street are saying. And that is what I mean, that basically it is a matter of impression that India is interfering too much in the politics of in the systems of Nepal. I think the popular level may be different from what the political leadership is saying. My expectation is that as the time goes along, because there are natural limitations on how far China can come.
Yes.
So my expectation is that provided we don't go wrong in our own cards and in our own diplomacy, my expectation is that slowly the relationship should come back to the even keel. But of course, it's a big if you don't go wrong.
Absolutely. As we do know, the fate, of course, hangs in balance, at least for Oli.
Yes.
And of course of the people of Nepal as well, but they are of course used to living on the edge as far as politics is concerned, as far as the democratically elected governments are concerned. In the meantime, Prachanda of course hoping to be the 39th Prime Minister. We'll have to wait and see what eventually happens, especially during the weekend. Today, of course, towards the evening, what happens, and at the weekend as well. We'll keep an eye out for developments there, but that's about time we have on The Big Picture. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me here. That's it for the moment. We'll see you again on Monday.